So I think that most of the participants are now preparing for the business case. I don't know if you're aware of how the Winter Challenge schedule works, but we are having a week of for them to prepare their business case, and it's almost like the submission deadline. It's tomorrow. Um, I hope they are working on it and everything is going well. But today it's also a great opportunity for everyone interested to find out about, maybe he's just curious about how the process works of applying in a broad university, or maybe he actually wants to apply. And I hope today everyone can find out things about this process. We have Simon and Steve and Yvette here with us today. They are all IEO alumni. Simon was in IEO 2021, if I'm not wrong. So was Steve and Yvette. But I will leave the floor to them to tell you a bit more about themselves and what they do. And I think that we are starting off with Simon. Thank you for being here today, actually.
Hello. So yeah, my name is Simon and I'm from Poland. I represented Poland in the IEO 2021. And that's, well, in 2021, a lot of important things happened in my life. So the first thing is obviously a gold medal in the IEO and invested in economics, which was a great thing. And apart from that, I won a scholarship to a high school in the UK, which is Worth School, where I currently study. And since then, when I have studied at Worth School, I started preparing for the applications to overseas universities, which I'm currently in the process, I may say. So hello, everyone.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. I did it now. So yeah, Steve and Yvette, maybe you also want to introduce yourselves now.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Steve. I'm Sang-young, but you guys can also call me Steve. I'm from South Korea and I'm studying in Yale University in the United States currently. I participated in IEO in 2020 as a representative of South Korea, and I am very glad and I'm very honored to be here and like share the insights and the perspectives that I have in college applications to the US. And I hope today's session is helpful for you guys to apply and learn a lot of things about US college applications. Thank you.
That's great. And Yvette, if you can hear us, maybe you would also like to introduce yourself.
Hi, so I'm Yvette, a current student at Georgetown studying in the School of Business, McDonald School of Business. I would probably major in international business and operations and analytics. Yeah, so I'm really happy to meet you guys later and give you guys some maybe experiences about how we went through the US university application process.
Thank you, that's great. Thank you for attending today. And I think that we are going back to Simon now to give us all the details.
Okay, so the first thing I think that will apply for both the US applications and which Steve and Yvette will be talking about soon, and also all of the European applications. So the first thing is pretty much when you're thinking about applying overseas, just make sure to European universities, make sure you start early. I mean, and it's not about only just filling the application form or whatever. It is a process of preparing yourself. It is a process of planning out some kind of a way to firstly build some kind of, academic strong sides, but also build a lot of extracurriculars and work on things that will make you attractive to the universities as a prospective student. So I started preparing, as I might say, last year, so in 11th grade, and it was pretty much about just getting involved in some societies like the MUN Society, the Debating Society, establishing, founding economics magazine for my school and a couple of other schools in the UK. So pretty much this is the idea of just getting yourself down to work and starting thinking about that. So this is the most important thing I would say. Also, regarding that, make sure that, well, when you're doing this, the universities will really focus on your academics. So in Europe, which is a bit different than in the US, the most chances for your admission rely on the grades you have. So trying to get this perfect GPA, the ideal grades, and well, pretty much a good score in the school is like, I could say 60 to 70% of your admission, of your chances for your admission. So I would really focus on that and then build on that, doing some extracurriculars also during the summer. So make sure you do some work experience if you have an opportunity. So well, I guess we will all be somehow interested in economics in here. So I can say that, well, if you have had any contacts during some networking sessions, let's say during the IEO or otherwise, with some people who work in consulting or in banking, you can always ask them, reach out to them and ask them, whether they are looking perhaps for some people who, could help them in some tasks and pretty much, get work experience. And there's a huge chance that they will actually agree, and then you'll have a great opportunity to explore the industry. Or if you haven't had such an opportunity, you just write to those people. You can cold email them pretty much, and this also gives you a big chance. So this is one of the things. But the most important thing I would advise at this beginning is just to explore your passion, to make sure you're doing what you love, and then that you're always stepping in some direction other than just as I said, courses are really important, but apart from that, you just have to cultivate your passion. You have to be a person who can talk about your subject for let's say, well, I applied to Cambridge recently, and I was invited for an interview, and I had to talk about economics for half an hour to a person who knew economics way more than I did, and it was a big challenge. So the thing is, you have to be always prepared for such thing, that you can just sit down and talk or write about your favorite subject for a long time, and just be passionate about it. That's the most important thing, I suppose.
Actually, yes, I 100% agree on this. Some of the participants attending today might not really be like 100% sure what they want to study. I mean, they probably have a passion for economics or business. But I think it's very important to find out what you like. And this way it will be so much easier to support it and actually fight for it, let's say. So yeah, that would also be advice from my side.
I have one more thing. So in terms of trying to, get some achievements that will make you stand out, and also like trying to develop your passion, just look for some webinars. There's a lot of webinars organized by schools on different subjects, and you can still keep exploring. You don't have to close yourself in economics. You can take things like, I don't know, computer science. You can get interested in, let's say, mathematics, some STEM subjects. Do it all, and then try to narrow it down as time goes. Probably at the end of 11th grade, you should have a rough idea of where you're going to apply, and like kind of what subject especially you want to take. Also, it's not that bad. Like, you don't have to be orientated for now on one subject, because many universities just offer some joint courses, so you can have, let's say, biology and economics, or it really depends on the university, of course, but many subjects are just connected in some way. And I know that in terms of economics, there's things like computer science and economics, data science and economics, mathematics and economics, politics and economics and history. All this kind of stuff is really popular. And some unis even offer, as I said, like subjects which might not seem connected to economics, which is like biology or philosophy. So you can always find something for you. And also regarding that, make sure to get some extracurricular academic achievements outside of school, which is perhaps taking part in some essay contests. So In my case, it was essay competitions in the UK, which are pretty popular, and also some economic quiz balls in the US, which I participated in. So if you look around, you will always find some interesting competitions in which you can take part, and then one, develop yourself, but also show that you are achieving something and you're over the average. I think I got a question in the in the chat, so I'll just answer it straight away. What were my stats to get an interview from Cambridge? So in A levels, for A levels, I'm doing economics, mathematics, further mathematics, and computer science. So I have predicted 4 A stars. On top of that, the TMUA, so that's a mathematical test for Cambridge admissions. So I scored 6.8 on it. So that's pretty much, yeah. I don't know how it compares at the moment, because this was the first year when we had TMUA tests. But yeah, in case you are curious, that's it. So yeah, I'll just pass the mic now.
I think that, Spiros, can you share screen part of the questions we had from Instagram? We did an Instagram poll, and I think that they had a couple of questions there. And I can also see in this chat what are some good business schools.
Well, so I can link up straight to that. Good business schools in Europe, I can say, are I think the 2 best business schools for undergraduates, because obviously most business schools are for graduates and MBAs. So this is not something we're particularly interested in at the moment. But the best business schools, I would say, are first, like, purely business schools, IE, which is a school. I think the school is based in Spain, but it has a couple of campuses across Europe, so you can check it out, IE. And also, obviously, I applied to that one, Bocconi, Università Bocconi in Italy, in Milan. So this is a great university. I think it's top in Europe for social sciences, and it has a great courses in economics, finance, business, also linking up to topics such as computer science, which are pretty important in business. So yes, I would recommend those two especially.
But I think it's also kind of subjective. I believe that before you start applying, you should make your own research on characteristics you're looking for in a university, what you want to study, what you want to do there. Like, look at the stats the university is giving online, and if it matches with your personality and what you want to do next, I think you should go for it. Saying that this is a really good business school is honestly not that much information maybe to someone. But in general, yes, we have all heard about these schools, I think. And yeah, I say make your own research, kind of. So what was the most difficult class? I don't know exactly what class they are referring to, but maybe in your last year?
Possibly. So in my levels, yeah, as I said, I'm doing 4 subjects, and possibly the most difficult one was further mathematics. So it's known as this type of academic mathematics level, where you're doing things like irrational numbers and what else, hyperbolic functions, and some really weird differentiation and integration, like not the basic, just doing some really strange things with 2nd degree non-homogeneous equations, as I heard. So the thing is, all those things are, they're not maybe too difficult, but they require a lot of just thinking. And after you have a lesson, you just have to sit down to it and think through it, and just make yourself realize, what is it all about? What logic does it follow? Whereas it's a really difficult topic, I would say, for the maths. I would say that if you're planning to study in the UK at high school, if you have a chance, then definitely do take further maths or whatever. I think that whatever country you're in terms of opportunities, you should take the most rigorous maths class as long as you can, as long as you can deal with it, because it just gives you a huge, like, great background for pretty much every subject you are interested in. So yeah, like, even though it's it's quite difficult, then I would say take it. And also, for an EU citizen wanting to study in a foreign country, what should be his most important criteria? So in terms of that, I would say grades. That's the first thing. Second, just make sure you have a couple of, in the UK, they call it supercurriculars, which are things that are extracurriculars, but they're connected to your subject. So just, doing something out of school that shows that you're passionate for it. So yeah, that's the second thing. And also, I would say that, especially in the case of the UK, currently after Brexit, we have a big problem with finance. So many students might find themselves not being able to fund this tuition fee of 23 to 30,000 pounds, which has become a standard. So I would recommend to just check out the scholarships. So I applied, as I said, I applied to Cambridge, and I applied specifically to a college that has scholarships for European Union students, which is Trinity College. And also I applied to Warwick, which gives out scholarships. So it is all about doing some research and making sure that it just suits your needs, and both financial needs, also career needs, because, well, different universities will have different career opportunities. Like, let's say Cambridge and LSE will land you a great place in, like, finance, economics. On the other hand, if you go to some universities in other places of the UK, you can find great opportunities for things like medicine or engineering. So yeah, I would just recommend that you build a really strong profile in terms of your academics and your academic subject, also showing that you have a passion for it. And on top of that, just make sure your decision is really well thought, because I know a lot of people who just apply to universities and they're not prepared to really be able to afford them, or possibly even meet the grades. So that's also an important thing. Many universities have this grade requirement posted on their web pages. So if you just look at it and see how you are doing, you can just especially in the case of the UK, because you have a limit for applying to 5 universities, you just make sure that the universities you're applying for, there's one, let's say, safety, which is something that is slightly below your predicted grades, then a couple possibly 3 at your predicted grades, and then 1 you can possibly go for something that's slightly above, and hope that you improve, and also they'll trust you that you will be able to improve and then get this higher grade. So that's something I would just recommend thinking about.
Yeah. Let's see if we have any.
Oh yeah, there was one question. So some essay competitions and economic goals. So I think I could write in the chat some of them which I took part in. So I'll just leave the floor for Steve and Yvette, and then I'll just write them down, because yeah, it'll be easier for everyone to just copy it and possibly look for it.
Okay, thank you very much, though. I hope everyone has made his notes, but we will also have a recording of the meeting online for the people that couldn't attend, or for the people that want to see it again. And I think that we're gonna go over to Steve and Yvette. Guys, I think you will be able to share screen. Can you try it? That's great.
Perfect.
All right, can you guys all see my screen?
Yes, we can see the first slide.
Okay, perfect. So Steve and I will talk briefly about how we apply to universities, and then how we gone through the entire experience, what's the process like, to give you guys a clear idea. So I think we briefly introduced ourselves earlier. I'm Yvette. I currently study at Georgetown. I'm a business major. I'll probably do operations, analytics, international business. I hope to become a management consultant in the future after I graduate from college. And then I was actually one of the bronze medalists in 2020.
I'm Steve. I'm a freshman currently at studying at Yale University in Connecticut, in the US. I'm a prospective mathematics and economics major, and I would like to work in international organizations like OECD, EU, or UN for now. And I was also with the vets in IEO 2020, bronze medalist in Korea, and that's actually how I got to know Yvette um, before this event. Yeah. Yeah, so we will go through this brief table of contents, first GPA, and then all the way to letter of recommendations. These 8 are like absolutely necessary elements of US application. So we will go slide by slide to talk about how to prepare for each element and how to eventually apply to US universities.
So the first step that we have here is GPA and course rigor. And obviously, like as what the previous speakers talked about, like it's better if you get the higher GPA, like the more the merrier in terms of GPA. But it's also an important mindset to have, which is GPA is irreversible. So once it passes, you should just move on and then try to get the best grades the next semester. Because even if you get like comparatively worse grades this semester, if you can prove that there is a upwards trend for your overall transcript, it's still beneficial, which is what I did for my classes. Secondly is the choice of classes that you take. So the more rigorous the course is, the better. So for me, my school used the AP system, AP and honor system. So I chose all my class, like I took all the possible honors and AP classes that I could possibly take. And that is going to be beneficial for me at least because usually APs or honor classes correspond to a higher grade for a certain grade point. So for example, for my school, a 4.7 for APs is like an A for an AP class is a 4.7, but a 4.0 for regulars. So if you can look at the right side, that's like a sample of my junior year transcript. Even though I didn't get A pluses in everything, I did decently well for the overall GPA because I took all the APs and honors that I could possibly take.
Yeah, then I would like to talk about standardized tests. I think standardized tests are the things that might concern a lot of you guys in terms of if you're an applicant. Now, these are based on like top 50 colleges perhaps in the US. And I wanted to provide like a basic idea of like what is a good score in SAT and like ACT, and I wrote them down. Like one thing to keep in mind is like taking the same standardized test over and over again for more than 3 times is probably not going to be ideal for you because that hints to the university or the college that you weren't prepared initially for the exam, and the score that you end up with is not actually your actuals, like does not reflect your actual English abilities. So I think 1500 for SAT or 33 for ACT are like safer scores overall in general. And TOEFL is also important because especially as an international student, you need to prove that you speak English pretty well so that you can adapt and like study well in that college. So I'd say a lot of colleges actually require higher than 100 score on TOEFL, and also something over the 105 would be like completely fine for any universities. And also APs, a lot of people spend a lot of time in AP, but I think it's important to prioritize things in US applications. So there are a lot of things, there are a lot of other things that you can take care about. So if you have more than 5 fives on AP, that would be completely safe. And above that, I would recommend that you spend your time doing other important things in US application.
So then it's the extracurriculars and honors. And this section is one of my favorites actually. And it is important that you gear your activities towards your prospective majors, but also show some quirkiness. So for example, if you think that, oh, everyone's doing debate, everyone's doing, which I did, everyone's doing MUN, then maybe you can try to do something special and quirky, such as like building race cars. Or for me, I did a lot of like field research that was like self-initiated instead of like participating in certain competitions, because that allows you to write a story of your passion, like build a passion project of your own to explain like what you care about in your life and not just like being a sheep and following what everyone else is doing.
And the second part that's important about extracurricular activities is the idea of presentation. Like even if you have this spectacular activity that you did in the past, like going to Alaska to do research or something, right? But then if you don't present it well, then it's not going to get the amount of like recognition that it requires. So certain things such as word choices, like how do you describe it or how you quantify your project. For me, I focused a lot on quantifying like how many people I impacted, the participants that were involved in, the amount of money that I raised, how many audiences did I reach overall. And throughout the course of high school, I remember that all my activities were pretty consistent. So I would continuously to participate in the same activities. For example, if it was like a field research, I would conduct it over like 2 to 3 years. If it was a nonprofit that I worked for, I would do it. I would also do it for like 2 to 3 years to show consistency.
Yeah, then it's personal statement. I think personal statement is also like a very important factor in terms of how you can show your completely different side and you can provide a completely new perspective, like non-academic perspectives to the college. So I say number one, like rule of thumb of personal statement is to be real. A lot of people want to like fit in all those academic informations in their personal statements, but I don't think that's the spirit of personal statement. I think you're supposed to put in your academic perspectives on other elements like GPA or honors or extracurricular, and this personal statement section is kind of built for your personal life and like relationship or the thoughts that you have. So they really want to know what kind of person you are in your personal statement. So I would say make use of like people near you, like your teachers or your friends, peers. Ask for help, like get some ideas about like what would be a good essay, and let them read and give you feedback. But also do not make too many people to read your essays because that might confuse you. Some will say that the essay is good. Others are going to say that's confusing, like it's not going to be good. So I would say you stick to like a few people that you can really trust their insights, and then you stick to them, and then continuously ask those same people towards the end of the application. And also obvious thing, show not tell. Is rather than saying like I'm a funny dude, say like illustrate it with an episode that shows like you're really like bright and like you're really like an interesting person in general. So I'd say that's also important. And last thing, start early, because if you're gonna if you try to cram your personal statement in like the final 2 days of like before the deadline, that's not going to work. So take your time, start early, and like try a lot of versions and try to explore what would be like the best option for you.
Yeah, I totally agree to start early. Me personally, I had 4 different story drafts, but then for each of the individual drafts, I had like 14 different versions because I just like didn't like the previous ones. So if you don't start early, if you like start 2 days before, you don't get to make the revisions and the changes. Next is going to be the supplemental essays that are going to be a tiny bit different across different schools, but generally some of the essays topics do overlap. For example, why do you want to come to this school? What is a subject that you're passionate about? What is a community that you contributed to? Some of these topics are like really common among the supplemental topics for schools. So what do these supplemental essays require? Firstly, is that you require research, a lot of research about the school. Show that what you're interested, find like these specific classes, like the very specific professors, the programs, the clubs that you want to attend to show the school that you thoroughly understood what their school is offering. One of the important things here is that you do not want to spell the school's name wrong. Like it's actually so funny. So for example, Johns Hopkins University, a lot of people say John Hopkins, and then like Johns Hopkins will actually just reject you because you're missing an S to their spelling of the school. And sometimes because people use essays across different schools, they forget to change their names. So they'll be like, I really want to attend Cornell when they actually are trying to apply to like, I don't know, UPenn, you know, something like that. So that's actually like really horrendous and funny experiences that I've seen from my friends, etc. Yeah. Secondly is, sorry, that's my roommate's alarm. Secondly is to read really good sample essays, because once you read more essays, you're going to realize that there is like a certain way of writing the essays, like a certain structure, which I'm going to talk about later based on my essay, the one that's on the right. It's actually my essay to Hopkins. Yeah. And then thirdly, it's show not tell, which Steve briefly talked about earlier. Try to reflect your qualities with like quirky little stories or like explanations instead of explicitly listing it out. So this is my essay to Hopkins. The way that I structured my essay was I started with an anecdote of me like collecting potatoes and like working on my grandmother's farm when I was little, and then my experience, what I saw there, and then thus realizing the problem of like food inefficiency over there, and then branching into how, because of that motivation, I started a research project in my community, and then how that linked with what I wanted to do at Hopkins. So I was like, oh, like I did this research for a welfare program, and therefore I wanted to continue this at Hopkins with like XYZ professor with this class and that class, join a discourse club so I can get feedback on that, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally the conclusion paragraph, oh, like with Hopkins renowned research opportunities and collaborative atmosphere, I'll be able to like accomplish what I am motivated and what I care about. So this very clearly demonstrates my motivation, and then my motivation for a certain subject, how I'm going to accomplish it exactly at Hopkins, and like a nice sounding little like conclusion.
Yeah, and also Yvette got into Johns Hopkins, so you can believe her. Yeah, and then the next thing is a letter of recommendation. A lot of people think this might not be important, but this is actually a very critical part of application in terms of how you can show both personal and academic perspective of yourself through these letters. I would say the most important thing that you need to care about is like you try to show diverse perspectives towards you through the combination of the teachers. For example, if you receive recommendation letters from 2 mathematics teachers, that's not going to be beneficial for you because one teacher is like already enough to show how you excel in mathematics. So in that case, I would prefer going one mathematics teacher and like another teacher in French or like English, other like humanities subject or like social sciences. So I would say diversify the perspectives. And also like one person, there can be like a teacher who knows you well in like academic perspective, and there will be people who you're like personally close to. So I would say like make a good combination out of those people, because the college also wants to know you, what kind of student you are in the classes, and like how well you participate, and like those kind of personal qualities, and like more like qualitative personalities, like other than like academic, and like how well you did in those exams. So I'd say you carefully think about like how each teacher is going to show you in their letter of recommendation, and like try to communicate a lot with them, like have coffee chats, and like try to have conversation about like how you want this direction to go for your letter of recommendation. And also like I'd say plan early, because there are some teachers who reject you for like writing letter of recommendations or stuff. So if that happens, you need to come up with a plan B and everything. And also it takes quite a long time for the teachers to write letter of recommendation. So I'd say you start early. And also there's this thing called extracurricular letter of recommendation, which is like not required for most universities, but it's like optional. So if you really think that there's a perspective of you that's not shown in any other parts of your application, I would recommend that you receive it. But make sure that you actually know that person and that person actually knows you. So just don't do this for the sake of like, oh yeah, I have extracurricular letter of recommendation as well. So make sure that it's actually helpful for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also did a extracurricular letter of recommendation from my debate coach, because she was part of my life for like over 4 years in high school. So I thought that would be like a good way to communicate what I did in debate and the qualitative part of it, other than the awards. So then after we're done with college, we're gonna share a little bit about how we thought IEO was helpful for our overall like college application experience. So firstly, obviously, it's like a deeper understanding in economics. Like I remember during my year, other than reading the AP textbooks, I also read like 2 additional economics textbooks. So I did have like I would say a decent grasp of economics overall. And that made my school year for the rest of like the AP season really easy. Secondly is I found my aspired career path. Okay, not Steve. That's we're joking. So I found my aspired career path because I realized that I do really love consulting through my experience of doing the business case. That's what I'm also pursuing in college right now. I'm also in one of the clubs, the consulting clubs on Georgetown. Thirdly is networks and friendships, which literally is how I unfortunately met Steve. We've been friends since sophomore year, and then we always like update each other about our lives, and then we tell each other about like, oh, what extracurriculars we're doing. We like update each other about our university life. A very wholesome little friendship that we got through this opportunity. We also met a lot of motivational and inspirational speakers. I remember we encountered like one of the authors of the textbooks that I read during our round of the IO competition. And then for college specifically, I got obviously to write about the honors, to write essay about the extracurricular activity. I also got to mention my experience during my college club essay interviews. So like during club applications in university is like a whole other like college application cycle. But basically, I also got to talk about my stories in those interviews that were incredibly helpful. And essays and recommendation letters were also, I also asked one of my Econ Olympiad coaches to write my extracurricular activity letter recommendations. So those were like the more concrete aspects of what I got out from the IO experience.
Yeah, also I feel like there are a lot of things to like further your relationship with IEO and like do a lot of like fun stuffs, and which is also helpful for you with IEO. So I think the most important thing is that IEO is like, it hasn't been too long since IEO was established. I think it's like the 6th-ish year this year. So there are a lot of things that you can do. For my case, I participate in the I like participate in organizing the Winter Challenge or Winter Challenge like 2 years ago, and also because there was like the Korean Economics Olympiad wasn't really like a thing. I thought that it would be better if we could create like a complete set of competition for national representative selection. So I reached out to a lot of people who actually do like who actually hold these competitions and like organize these competitions professionally. And then with them, I was able to like establish like a proper Korean Economics Olympiad, which was like honestly great. And also I could write that in my college application in terms of how I'm like this like self-motivated student who is willing to like make changes to the environment and the system that I'm in. And also I participated in IEO 2021 as the team leader. So that is also a good option if you perform well in your as a participant in IEO, helping making sure that your team is doing well in the competition. So I'd say there are a lot of probabilities and there are a lot of possibilities that you can collaborate with the IEO. So I'd say stay tuned and like try to do what you want to do, and like that would be really helpful for you and really unique for you in the end.
Yeah, that's it. Feel free to email me or Steve, or if you have like any questions about US universities, or if you want to apply to any of our schools specifically. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. This has been very organized, and I think it will be easier for the participants to remember. If they want to email you, I mean, you've provided your emails. That's always really nice. I always emphasize on making the connections and actually putting the effort in to meet the people you are working with, or the people that are in the same environment as you. Maybe you can get a friendship, as you said, out of it, or maybe you just get to know and a different person and like exchange interests and information. Maybe he finds out about something you are interested in and he lets you know, and then you can go in another competition for it, let's say. I think we also have some questions for you from the Instagram. Can you stop? Great, Spirus? Okay. It's up to you how you want to divide this or how you want to start it.
All right. I'll start with how you make a good essay. So this is a very difficult question. Obviously, there's no like formula for a good essay. I'd say it differs and depends on like what kind of life you lived. But I say overall advice is don't go for like a too depressing subject or depressing like topic. I'd say try to be more like lighthearted and like show like your personality and stuff. So personally, I wrote about my pencil case. And like my so basic storyline was like I have my friends' signatures on my pencil case, and that through that I tried to illustrate how I think about my friendship and like my relationship with other people. So that was like so through that I showed how like I care about other people, care about my social life, and it was like a wholesome essay overall, I think. So I think for a good essay, you just try to think of like multiple versions and also like multiple subjects like that you can write on, and then you keep on developing them. Then eventually you'll end up with the essay that shows you the best, and you can go with that.
Yeah, I totally agree with Steve. I think a good essay also needs to tell people why you do the things that you do. For me, I remember talking about how I wrote about me resembling a gecko on my window because I used to hate and despise geckos because I thought they were disgusting and horribly looking. But then there was like a gecko on my window during summer and I had to like coexist with it. So I learned how to fall in love with the gecko. And because I realized the gecko resembled me in a lot of ways. For example, they are like tacky when they see opportunities. They don't care about like being embarrassed if they really wanted to accomplish something. So that was like the way that I explained why I'm willing to go out of my comfort zone and start a lot of projects that are like self-initiated instead of like, oh, just doing competitions or doing like activities that everyone else was doing. Yeah, so I think a good essay explains why you do the things that you do, your motivation behind like your overall activities or what motivates to wake you up in the morning, something like that. Yeah. I will take the next question of maybe summer school programs, because I did one of the summer programs in high school, one that was from Wharton. It was called Future of the Business World. So that summer program dealt with entrepreneurship. It taught you how to design products, make prototypes, and then pitch that to potential investors. So I think that is a good opportunity to get more insights about what it's like to be in the real business world. And at the same time, develop some networking with people abroad because I'm international. So I can meet with like professors of Wharton, get educated from like their alumni, have some contacts, and then meet people abroad who are also interested in business. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take the next question of is SAT important? The answer would be yes. Especially for international students, it's like an undeniable fact that SAT scores are important. It's because essentially colleges want to know if you can study well in their colleges, right? And SAT is kind of like one of the perspectives, one of the ways that they can determine that in terms of how you can read English, how you can comprehend English, and like how much grammar do you know about English, and like those basic mathematics skills, and like so I think these SAT scores like tell colleges and like appeal to the colleges that if you get into that college and you enroll to that college, you're gonna do well in the academics, and colleges obviously want that. So for international students, I'd say SAT is undeniably important. Yeah.
Yeah, for my school, like both Steve and my school are like hyper competitive. For my school, our average SAT score for a class of 45 was like a 1470. So almost everyone in our class, like I think 1/4 of us had a 1500 plus. So basically, if you did not have a 1500 plus, it would be be a little in like dangerous waters, I would say. Yeah, if you wanted to apply, let's say a T20. Yeah. I'll take the next question, which is what are your honors and extracurriculars? I do not remember exactly what activities I put for college. I'm just gonna really quickly look through my resume that I submitted for college. And then, so I interned around 2 different nonprofit organizations as a pro bono consultant and a project manager. We led things like website redesigning, and then creating marketing content for like a 20K government prioritized purchase deal. I also made like a fintech app with my friend, which taught about like investment simulation and like market news analysis fundamentals, and then IEO, of course. And then I did a initiative that's surrounding food to raise money. We raised like around, I guess, 10K, and then also published like a story map for around 6,000 views. And then I also did another, I guess, nonprofit initiative for education. We raised around 15K, donated like 2,000 books or something. And then for research and public speaking, I was part of the debate club. I was also on the debate national team, and some numerous other awards for like public forum policy, tournaments of champions. And then I also did like, I also published a research paper for, it was revolving around Taiwan's national sovereignty on some kind of platform that was supported by the gifted and talented Silicon Valley Innovators Venture Challenge. Yeah, so that was basically what I generally had for my college.
Yeah, for me, I had for honors, I had International Economics Olympiad and a talent award that's awarded to like high school students in Korea, so like selected by the government. And also I tried to put in a lot of like school stuff because I thought like more than GPA, I wanted to appeal that I excelled in academics in my school. So I tried to put in a lot of like academic honors that I received in my school. For extracurricular, as I told you, I wrote the Korea Economics Olympiad as like one of the main activities that I did during high school. So that was, yeah, I'd say that was important. Then a lot of like club activities like debating, physics club, mathematics club, yeah, and whatnot. Then I would answer have you taken a look at your admissions file? What are universities looking for? I haven't, but a lot of my roommate and like my suite mates have checked it. And overall, so they like grade you in a scale of like 1 to 7. And then like 1 would be the highest, and then 7 would be the like 7 or 4, yeah. And then if you get like 1, you'd be like 100% like accepted. But then 2 plus, that would be also like kind of accepted. And then like from 2, it would be like kind of risky. So overall, they really give like a holistic review of your entire application. And I really thought that they also care about how you're like socially ready for the college as well, above like adding on to the academic stuff as well. So I'd say you take care about like all the perspectives that are shown in your application, and you really try to show like your entirety in your application, not just academics by itself.
Yeah, I totally agree to show like your entirety in the application. One of the early mistakes that I made when I was writing my essays was that I talked a lot about my extracurricular activities, but then I realized that I had no personality if I was someone that did not know me and was looking at my application file, because then they just know me as someone that's like a workaholic, and then someone would just keep on working and then do your extracurricular activities. But like, okay, so what's outside of that, right? So I haven't looked at my admission file either, but I think I have a general sense as to what universities are looking for based on the peers that I'm seeing here. And then like we have the commonalities we share. So I think it's kind of important for you to have a spike in your overall application. Like I think for Steve, his spike is definitely his academics. And then for me, my spike is like my extracurricular activities. So if you know that you are like better in a certain area, then you can try to push that spot a little further. For me, it was extracurricular activities. So I made sure that I honed that point home. And then I made sure that that was the spike on my application. And then for everything else, like GPA, standardized tests, I made sure that I reached the threshold. Like I reached like a 1530, and then I reached like a 4.5 GPA. And that was enough for me. Like I wasn't going to try to excel in those areas anyways, because that's probably not my spike when I was applying. Yeah, so just make sure to take your priorities and make sure that you know what your strengths are and present that to your admission officer.
Yeah, and finally, how to apply for USA colleges. make Common App accounts, and then fill out all the necessary elements in it, and then you can apply. You can choose colleges and then apply. I think about what the necessary elements are. I think we covered that in our presentation. So yeah, the methodical way would be Common App and then apply to colleges.
Yeah, some school also has their own separate portal. Like for Georgetown, for example, we also have our own separate portal where you have to open an account. And then UC schools also have their own UC system. So you would need to open an account for that. And then I think like Emory and also some Canadian schools have their own portals. So if you're interested in those, remember to just open a corresponding portal account for those schools.
I believe we have covered everything. I just really wanted to emphasize one last thing that I think Yvette mentioned, knowing your strengths and knowing how to actually present them. I think it's very important. You might be able to recognize what you're not very good at, but it's also very important to work on it, but also accept it. And it's all about how you present yourself, in my opinion. So you should probably learn how to do that if you haven't done so already. Simon, do you want to say something?
I just wanted to add something in terms of like the technical preparation for applying for European universities. I kind of intentionally missed that because it's a model, because every country has their own thing pretty much. So I can like really quickly tell how it looks like at the moment. So in the UK, you have the UCAS portal where until now you had you just filled in your grades. You got a recommendation, one recommendation, like really short from, it was called a reference from your tutor or your like the person who knows most about your academic progress. And then on top of that, you wrote a personal statement, which was 4,000 characters, was meant to tell about your interest in the subject, your extracurriculars, your reasons for applying to not a particular university, but to study the subject at the universities. And then you send this thing to 5 universities across the UK, and that's pretty much it. Sometimes in case of Cambridge, they invite you to an interview and then you discuss things with them. Sometimes you take an admissions test before, but this is pretty much the general process. Currently something has changed. So in terms of the personal statement for UCAS, it's not there anymore. I mean, it's for the next year of applicants as well. So if you're in 11th grade, you'll have to write a personal statement, but if you're in 10th grade or below, you won't have to. So pretty much the idea is that you will be asked some short questions. This is something we don't know yet anything about. So this is just a recent change. But in terms of if you're writing a personal statement, if you're in 11th grade and you're writing a personal statement, just make sure to think about what you read, what books you read, and how they influence your thinking, what activities you did, and how they influence your knowledge of the subject, and also possibly influence you as a person. Try to focus mostly on your academic interests, and just make sure, because this is the only place where you can actually mention your honors and extracurriculars. So try to make it as many things as possible as you possibly can, but also make it quite smooth. So I recommend just giving like 1 or 2 academic honors, and then just like writing about 1 or 2 academic activities and making, this taught me that, this taught me that, this shaped me as a person, this inspired me to actually pursue the subject that I'm interested in, and all this stuff. It's a really hard topic to deviate on, so I don't think that we'll be able to cover it in this talk, but yeah, that's the main idea. In terms of applying, I also applied to Netherlands and Italy. So Netherlands just requires you to usually just send you some of your grades and transcripts, and possibly answer a couple of short questions. It really depends on the university you're applying to. And also Bocconi. Oh, also they require you to send a CV for Netherlands. So you just have to have education, some kind of work experience if you have any, then your activities, potentially your interests and things like that. It is just a simple CV format, so it has to be usually 1 page, and then you just begin from education, work, activities, interests. That's pretty much it. And also Bocconi requires you to write something that's called a motivational letter, which is where I applied to in Italy. So they ask you to just write why do you want to study there and what makes you a good candidate, which is also quite but okay. Also, in terms of like the last thing, I think it applies to both universities in the US and in the UK and in Europe. Make sure you cooperate with your school, because if you're an international student, they might not have an idea what exact formal requirements are for each school. So then you have to talk to them in advance, also to your recommenders. So just make sure you outline to them a couple of months before how the process looks like, what documents they will have to prepare, roughly how they should write it, because letters of recommendations, let's say many teachers in international schools, they do not know yet. So you have to show them like what qualities have to be underlined. But it's all about, as Steve and Yvette said, it's about dialogue. It's about just making sure they know. So yeah, just that's it, I guess. Oh, also, there's a question. There's one more question. Oh, actually, two. So I think one is for one I can answer myself, and the other one I think we should take a turn. So, is English proficiency test important, even if the main country's main language is English? No, I mean, it really depends, because I have studied in the UK for 2 years, and some universities require at least 3 years of high school in the UK or an English-speaking country so that you qualify as proficient in English. So you have to check like the specific requirements for each university, because yeah, if you're born and raised in an English speaking country, there will be no problem. If you came there for the last couple of years of high school, there might be. And obviously, if that applies to you, you have to take a test, which is, in case of the US, it's either IELTS or TOEFL, and sometimes also SAT qualifies, I guess. As a some universities, it can just like waive you the proficiency requirement, and for the UK, it's mostly IELTS, I believe. So, yep. And then some tips for the IEO, since we are all winners. Well, I mean, just love the subject, I believe. So one thing is, we talked about it. So reading some economics textbooks, making sure that you have this academic side covered really well. Then read a lot of news, be able to understand how things are applied in real world. So just like make sure you're on top of the of what's happening in the world currently, especially now that there's so many intriguing things happening in the economy. And on top of that, just be passionate. So if you find something that interests you, I mean, my preparations for the IEO were pretty much reading the core economy textbook and then just going through some academic papers and Wikipedia, which was a crazy idea. But honestly, I found out about so many weird concepts in the niche economics. And then if you scroll through some portals, and then you find out some terms that you've never come across, then you can just dive into them and go down the rabbit hole. And probably that helps the most, because then you understand so many things. I believe that it's just fun to get it. So I leave the tips, other tips to Steve, because yeah, I see your mic.
Well, I'd say I agree to someone, like in terms of like reading the core economics textbook, and like just being like for in terms of economics, just like getting close to the theory and like getting used to those kind of examples. But I think for business case, it's helpful for you to like practice business case with your national team before the competition, if possible. That would be very helpful. And also for finance, that would be helpful to like, so just practice everything beforehand. IEO, the more that you practice, the more you'll be rewarded in the end.
Yeah, for us, our business case, I think our team did over like 10 different practice cases before the actual IEO. Yeah, like we would just lock ourselves in a rented classroom for more than 10 to 15 hours. And then we would just try to produce a PowerPoint for our coach, and then we would get criticism from that. So at the point when we got to the IEO, we were actually really glad that we got 24 hours instead of like 10, which was we were originally used to. Yeah, that was the IEO at the time. And then we also knew each other, like we had really great team chemistry. We almost knew exactly what the role allocations were because there were so many practices. It was just based on instinct at that point. Yeah, so just do a lot of practices. And then the rest academic wise, I think the other two people did a lot of good sharing.
Well, in the winter challenge, they do have like a bit more time for the business case. They actually have about 9 days, but sometimes they still don't know their teammates or they just met them. So I think it's kind of a struggle. But the tips you just shared, especially the practice one, I think they can also be used in our case. But thank you so much, guys, for attending today. It's been really helpful. I believe so. It's been even helpful for me. I'm not applying to any colleges right now, but I think that the advice can actually be modified in everyone's situation. And we also have a lecture tomorrow, but you will see the updates on our social media and the group chats. Have a nice rest of your days.
You too.
Bye-bye.
If you have any questions, hit up on LinkedIn, everyone.
Right. Everyone, I think, has shared their email or LinkedIn, so you can find them, guys, online.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.